Welcome back to the Sports Complex on a Monday afternoon. Texas gets a big win over Kansas, 40 to 14 on Saturday. We'll get into a lot of that. Sark spoke to the media today. We'll play some audio from Sark talking to the media as we kind of start to wrap up Kansas. We'll wrap up Kansas today, and tomorrow, by Wednesday, we'll be getting into the big OU weekend. It is 5:01 p.m., and OU still sucks. We'll get into Patrick's Big Fat Poll today. Play some clips from Hook 'em Up this morning talking about Texas and Kansas. Do a little NFL talk. Wrap up the NBA and Damian Lillard talk. And, of course, your text, 512-447-3776. 512-447-3776 is the new text line. Hit us up there. Let us know what you thought about Texas and Kansas, what you guys want to hit on the show today. What are your worries about this team 5-0 for the first time in a long time? What do you feel we still need to work on as Texas? What do you feel Texas' strengths are? Or how do you feel going the rest of the season? Is this a year for you? Are you still trying to hold back? You still trying to put a governor on your Kool-Aid drinking? You want to get into that. All that, hit us up, 512-447-3776, and let's get into Texas versus Kansas. I will also mention, we should mention, that the Astros and Rangers both made the playoffs. Crazy day on Sunday. So the Rangers are now in the wild card series against Tampa Bay. They will be playing that game tomorrow at 2 p.m. We will have it on our airwaves. Pregame starting at 1:30. It may push back the start of this show a little bit on Tuesday and Wednesday and Thursday if necessary, but we don't know. Depending on how quickly the game finishes, it may not interrupt us at all. It may interrupt us a little bit with the post-game show, but we will be here all throughout the week. A big show coming up on Friday as well. I believe Rob Baber is going to be joining me in studio. Aaron Hogan and some of the guys from Inside Texas are going to be in Dallas at Terry Black's in Dallas. So it is going to be a very cool show on Friday as well as we get you ready for Texas OU. You do not want to miss that on Friday. Let's get into Texas versus Kansas. 40 to 14, big win. It was not convincing at all at halftime. I know a lot of people were worried at halftime. Jalen Daniels, which we spent up talking about all week. I feel like this is the third time this season that we have spent an entire week talking about a quarterback, and then that quarterback is a game-time decision to not go. That has happened a lot to me. That has happened a lot to this Texas team, and they prevailed, which there's some positives, there's some negatives. You know, you can say all day, you played against a worse quarterback, and you did because Jalen Daniels is electric. At the same point, it is difficult as a defense to plan for one thing all week and then completely switch. They've done well at it to not let him get beat too bad. There was some big plays over the top again, which you don't like to see. But for the most part, Texas played really good on defense, especially in that second half, really slowing down Kansas and not allowing them too much. And Texas offense finally got it going in that second half. Red zone still a worry. Too many drives stalled out. Auburn missed some kicks that you don't normally see him miss. Those types of things are worries, but for the overall points, you saw Texas play well. Here's Sark speaking to the media today, opening up and kind of giving his piece on the Texas-Kansas game this morning.
After the last ball game, I've been talking about being a versatile football team kind of all year, and I thought our versatility showed itself again Saturday against Kansas. Clearly being our ability to possess the football, creating explosive plays on offense was a key factor in the game. It was really our best game on third and fourth down that we've had all year, where we were 9 of 15 on third down plus 2 for 2 on fourth down. Do the math on that. That's 11 of our 15 drives that we were able to extend on third down and fourth down, and not punting. We missed a couple field goals there and had the pick at the end of the first half, but just our ability to extend drives I thought was very impressive, and the balance that we had was really encouraging. On the flip side, defensively, really, it's like 3 plays that got out on us. They had the long touchdown run, which was a great play by Catalan, knocking the ball off. The ball bounces to him. Poor execution on the touchdown pass that they hit, and then they got us on kind of a wide leak play that hurt us. But outside of that, I thought defensively we played really well. On the flip side, our defense holding them 0 for 8 on third down and 0 for 2 on fourth down. So things there that were encouraging. I think, naturally there's always things for us to work on and get better at. We want to score touchdowns just like everybody else wants us to when we're in the red area. So, drilling down on that execution is important. I think, again, minimizing the explosive plays on defense is going to be critical. And then our operation on field goals got to get better. Snap, hold, kick. We've got to clean that up. Bert's too good of a kicker to have missed a few here in the last couple weeks. So we've got to get that cleaned up.
You have to get that cleaned up with the kicking. That is a issue that I don't know how you address fully. Sark talks about it a little bit later. We can play that sound for you. But, you just try and keep it going. They have no plans of right now. He did say today they have no plans of replacing Auburn. You're trying to get him back into the trends he wants. With kickers, it's so much about, mental reps and just not getting the yips. And it seems with Auburn, he's got a little bit of them that if things aren't going perfectly for him, he seems to be missing. And so you can kind of put different parts of it where you want to put it, that he's had some issues. Here's Sark talking about it. So it can kind of give you where Sark is saying there was some other extraneous factors. It wasn't just him, but at the same part, you need a kicker who's able to hit that because, a high snap should not mean a missed field goal in every position.
No, I think at the end, what happened, okay? The kick against Baylor, we have a high snap. We don't protect the edge very well. He pushes it right off the upright. The second one's a 50-yarder. So percentages aren't great from 50. But I think we can clean that up. And then the 47-yarder, again, a little bit of a high snap, but again, I think he's better. So I think us getting our battery, our operation, snap, hold, kick, protection to ensure confidence in him, and then two, him trusting his training. He's too good. He's been doing it for 2 years for us now. It's just getting him back into his comfort zone, and he started that today. He kicked the ball well today.
So you do need to, you can make the excuses. We had that last week about Baylor with the muff punts that Sark will say, well, there was other things going on, which I appreciate that he is trying to not throw his players under the bus, and he doesn't want to throw Auburn under the bus because once he does, he may make him worse. That all you can really do going into OU week, there's two things. One, you can basically try and work with him all week, give him as many ones he can make, let him see him go through the uprights, and hopefully that'll focus him a little bit more. Give him some ones where the ball snapped high or there's a guy coming off the edge maybe, and he just needs to focus a little bit more. Just focus on what you're doing. You can also try and not get stuck in as many positions. And that's, as Texas fans, more what you're hoping for is that you do not continually get into situations where you may throw on first down, run on second, and throw on third in the red zone, or throw all three times in the red zone, or just get into position after position where drives are stalling out. You like to be able to see him. You'd like to be able to see Auburn not be in that position. And if they are, they're more chip shots. And, it's something where it's the end of the half or end of the quarter. Against OU, this is one of the few weeks where you have to say there's a good chance that Texas is not blowing away and these field goals really do matter. So you would like to be able to see him get it back on track. But I don't know if there's a lot you can do if you're Sark other than for this week, just try and get him to see some go through the upright. And then the week of the game, plan to go for it more on fourth down. Try and get into winnable positions. I'm a big proponent of in the red zone trying to run the ball more. I know Sark likes to throw it, but we saw at the end of the game, he ran it a lot more in the red zone, partly because you're up. So you are playing clock management. So you are going to run the ball a lot more. He ran the ball more and saw better results. So you would like to see him run the ball. You like to see him run the ball a little bit more and get into fourth and manageable positions in the red zone. He doesn't seem to be getting into those fourth and manageable positions because he's throwing early, which then puts him behind the sticks, and then a 2-yard run puts you at 3rd and 8, and now you're going to throw 2 times in a row? You're not, because it's 4th and long. So there was a play earlier in the game against Kansas where he tried to throw a quick one over the middle to get him kind of close, and it didn't end up working. But again, those pass plays, even if they're short passing, even if they're quick passes, not the same success rate that he's had running the ball. Jonathan Brooks has been killing it this season. So I don't know why you wouldn't necessarily want to kind of run the ball more in the red zone. Speaking of running, huge thing that we saw this weekend, we saw Quinn Ewers for the second straight week really use his legs. And it's something that has been talked about a lot, and it's not a Sark thing. He doesn't want to be a running quarterback team. He's not going to ever call a quarterback draw. He may call a quarterback sneak here and there, but he's not going to call a lot of quarterback draws or any at all, really. He doesn't want to have a quarterback sneak out to the side. He doesn't want to do any of that. He'd like to be a throwing team and then run the ball. It's more standard playing, especially with a guy like Quinn Ewers, where you don't want to get him too much abuse and too many opportunities to get hurt. However, we saw this year one of Sark with Casey Thompson and Hudson Card, that Hudson Card had issues his freshman year or his first year playing under Sark, that he was not able to – Sark would tell him to sit in the pocket, and he took it so literally that he wouldn't break out and go for a run when everything broke down and there was no one out there. And when we saw Casey Thompson come in, he was sometimes too quick to run, but he got that, and that's why he was able to play better in Sark's offense. Part of Sark's offense is, if it breaks down, go make the best play. And I think Quinn Ewers wasn't getting to that read ever before. He was really so focused on don't make the interception, but make the throw, that he would get eat up in the pocket and get sacked on some of these plays, that now you see him, he's starting to see that bigger part, that if there's green in front of you, go for it. And that green's only 6 or 7 yards, that's fine. Everything doesn't have to be wide open all down the field that it's a touchdown run. Now, it's great when you get those. But even if it's a few yards for Quinn to go do that, it has been a huge difference, because Quinn is now being able to add another piece of the offense that you're not able to figure out, and another piece that you have to worry about, that those linebackers and safeties and everybody has to now worry about, that before you could kind of blitz and not worry about Quinn taking off, that you were more worried about him getting a quick throw off and hitting JT Sanders or somebody else like that. We'll play the injury update on them. There isn't much to be said, but we'll play it for you. But here's Sark talking about Quinn running the ball and how he feels about it, knowing that he is not a coach that enjoys to run the ball with the quarterback.
Yeah, I think with Quinn, it's probably both. We've always preached, we're not a running quarterback team. We don't run design quarterback runs like a lot of other people do. But we do rely on the quarterback to use his legs at opportune times, most notably third down and in the red area. And I think Quinn is really starting to excel at that. If you notice, when do his scrambles come? Third down in the red area. And he's used his legs, and he's used his newfound conditioning and speed to be an advantage for him and for us. So that's been a real positive.
It is. It's a huge positive to be able to have a quarterback that can go break out and take defenders a little bit off, especially to buy that little bit of time with linebackers, that little bit of time with cornerbacks to try and get one of your main guys open, to try and spring somebody that now you're not only worried about Jonathan Brooks, who is having an insanely good season right now, from the week one being the backup running back to now what he's able to do. You don't have to worry about that. You have to worry about that guy. You have to worry about Xavier Worthy, who teams are holding someone in check by going over and doing a lot and trying to overcompensate for. You have to worry about JT Sanders. If he's healthy, here's a JT Sanders. If I can find that report real quick. Let's go over here. There's Sark being asked about JT Sanders and Ryan Watts. Not a lot of new information.
JT and Ryan are both day-to-day right now. It's going to take a minute for them to rehab and see if they'll be able to go. I'll probably have a better answer for you on Thursday.
So we don't know a lot about those two. I also don't think Sark's going to let on either way, really. We know that Sark likes to play the games, and everybody else seems to be playing them a lot this time of year. We've seen that other teams have not mentioned to us that they're not going to be playing their starting quarterback for a bunch of weeks. I don't think Sark's going to say whether Ryan Watts will be playing. They'll both be game time decisions, I'm assuming. And whether or not, they're even going to be bringing a uniform, I'm assuming they're both going to be called game time decisions. We'd like to hear them be a little bit more optimistic, but I'm not buying into either one of them until I see them out warming up on the field. But we get back to what Quinn Ewers can do by opening the world up, opening the offensive world up by running the ball. That Xavier Worthy's on one side, Adonai Mitchell, who had a great game again because they started to focus really on Xavier Worthy, especially once JT Sanders went down. They started to throw, they were covering everything over to Xavier Worthy, and Adonai Mitchell stepped up. That's what you want to see on this team is even when somebody may go down, even when there's something gone, you added another piece of an undefendable too many weapons by Quinn Ewers running the ball. We know he can throw, so now we have these other options. It becomes a really hard thing to guard. We weren't as worried about this offense versus Kansas, but I think they did a great job. But we mentioned Adonai Mitchell and him being a big part of that game. And, you know, he's had some good moments so far at Texas. I think this was his best game as really coming through in some clutch moments, you know, making some big catches for Texas. Here's Sark talking when he was asked today about how did you get Adonai Mitchell? What's the pitch to get Adonai Mitchell to come to Texas? You know, he's playing on a Georgia team. How do you get him to come to Texas? Here's Sark talking about that.
You know, I think for AD, you know, we were looking for something complementary to Xavier, and we were looking for a guy that, A, had the skill set to take the top off of defense, so Xavier wasn't the only deep ball threat that we had. We were looking for a guy that could make plays on 50-50 type balls that had a really good range and catch radius. And we were looking for a guy with experience I didn't want to roll the dice on could he handle playing in this environment and with the team that we have and what we think we could. And so he kind of checked all the boxes. And then when we started the recruitment process of it, you got a sense of his maturity. He has a daughter. He's a great father. He's got two awesome parents that raised him really well. And it was an opportunity for him to come home, being from Houston, to come back to Texas and still be in a system that was pro style, coming from Georgia, that fit kind of what he was looking for. I think it was a good fit all the way around.
It was a good fit. And it's shown that he is, continuing his job of recruiting and getting guys in the transfer portal. But huge game for Adonai Mitchell in there. And another guy who had a really good game. And I'll play a clip from where Rob Babers goes further into this. But when JT Sanders went down, we know they like to run the big package. They ran it a few more times than usual because of JT Sanders going down. Malik Agbo, a redshirt freshman, coming in on the offensive line, can do a lot of different things. Sark talked about him today. Someone that could have a big impact against OU, as JT Sanders, whether he is 100% come Saturday, does not play, or is anywhere in between, we know that he is Malik Agbo is going to see more action most likely continuing as the season goes on. Here's Sark talking about Malik Agbo.
Yeah, Malik, really talented young man. He's very smart. He's extremely athletic. He's a guy, if you go back and watch his recruiting tape, he's actually playing some 7-on-7, playing tight end. And he was a really good basketball player. So he's got a very versatile skill set. Historically, for us, systematically, we've always had a lineman kind of in that role. We think it's effective for what we do and causes the defense, just some different things that they need to prepare for. I'm hopeful, actually, with Malik, we can start to do even more. I think that he has got a skill set that is above and beyond what we've had, historically at that position with that guy. So hopefully we can continue to expand on his role that way. But been very impressed. He's handled this new position that we've been using him on game day really well.
One of those things to look for. Malik Agbo getting more plays. Depending on where JT Sanders is, we'll know more Thursday, but I'm assuming we're not going to know much until game time, till we see the guys out there warming up on the field. Now, on the other side of it, we talked a ton last week about the defense for Texas. We talked a ton about what does this defense need to do, because they're the key part of the game. Now, Jalen Daniels is out, so you kind of take that where you get it, and you can't say that they had the greatest game because they weren't playing against this dynamic player. They did keep up the number that we all said last week that they need to be. We wanted them under 20, but under 15 was really great. They held them to 14, basically two big plays, but didn't let the offense move the ball enough to really get into field goal range at any point where they were willing to not go for it on fourth down. So Texas comes out, does what they need to do on the defensive end. One of the pieces that Sark has been talking about more this year, because he has more depth, because he feels that this was a huge problem in the third and fourth quarter last year when these teams were coming back on Texas. He felt his defenses were getting pretty tired. And the results so far have shown that the second half defense has been immeasurably better than it was last year. Now, we're still only 5 games into the season, but they have been much better. They haven't allowed these dramatic fourth quarter comebacks, which is partially on the offense, but a lot on the defense. And part of that is rotating players. Sark has done a really good job this season of rotating players. And now he's been beat a few times, but he's not getting beat when they're and getting beat to put them behind and not getting beat to put them in a terrible position late in the games. They're getting beat a little bit early because they may have the wrong guy in and they're guessing wrong on what kind of play they're going to get called, right? But rotating defenders has been a big piece of Sark's plan this season. Here's Sark talking about rotating defensive players and why he thinks it's working this season.
Yeah, I think it's been huge. Like I said, we've gone through first halves of games where we played upwards of 30 guys. And sometimes you don't feel the effect of that rotation in the first half. But naturally, you look at some of these fourth quarters we've been having now and the way we're finishing some of these games, I do think is paying dividends off, not only in that game that we're specifically talking about, but over the course of the season, right? They're just not accumulating as many reps. And we're more fresh. I think we're more fresh physically. We're more fresh mentally. And the guys are really kind of buying into that idea of let's rotate our guys through. When my number's called, I'm going to go empty the tank. I don't have to try to save any of my energy because the next guy's going to come in and I'm going to trust him that he's going to do his job as well.
It's been worked so far. It has worked so far. Everybody seems to be emptying their tank constantly. I like it. I like it so far. We're going to see if it continues against OU. Let's get to Patrick's Big Fat Poll of the day. Remember, you can join the conversation 512-447-3776, 512-447-3776.
Patrick's Big Fat Poll of the day on the Horn.
All right, you know what it is on a Monday after a game. Who was the MVP for Texas against Kansas? A lot of offensive options. I don't know if there's a defensive one. I don't know who stood out defensively. Jalen Ford's always in that discussion. Jahdae Barron can be in that discussion too. Jalen Catalon had some really good plays in that as well. So, maybe you throw it to one of the defenders because they did hold Kansas to 14 points. I know Bean was in instead of Jalen Daniels. So, maybe you don't give it to a defensive player. You give it to a Quinn Ewers who has 325 yards passing, another 40 yards on the ground, 3 touchdowns. He did throw his first pick, but didn't end up killing you. Jonathan Brooks, 200 yards plus, 2 touchdowns. You give it to Adonai Mitchell, another 141 yards and a touchdown on the ground. Lots of guys you give it to on that offense. A lot of guys played really well on that offense. Who? Maybe it's somebody else. Maybe it's someone I'm not thinking of. Maybe you're giving it to a lineman. Maybe you're giving it to somebody who showed up that you feel was your MVP that really gave him the edge. Who's your MVP for Texas against Kansas? 512-447-3776. Anything else? I also want to know if you have any concerns out of that game that you really think, man, I don't know about this. I don't know if this going forward, this may be a problem. Or how you feeling? Do you feel that Texas is going to be able? Is this a team that you feel can go all the way? You still hold down on that Kool-Aid, or are you Kool-Aid chugging 5 weeks in? Do you need to see the OU game before you start Kool-Aid chugging? If they beat OU, are you Kool-Aid chugging then? Let me know. 512-447-3776. Anything else you want to talk about after the game? NFL talk will come up here at the 6 o'clock hour. Do a little NBA talk as well. We'll get into all of that. And, of course, more of your text, 512-447-3776. Shout out to Stein asking about 2 things that concern him. Quinn's consistent inconsistency in the passing game and our safeties getting beat over the top. The safeties getting beat over the top is more an issue of getting the right personnel in. We just talked about rotating defenses. They have guys that cannot get beat over the top. It's more about when you put those guys in, you're trying to guess the right situations and play calls, and they've missed it a few times. They've got it right more times they've got it wrong, but, those aren't on the highlight reel. So you see those. And I don't think Quinn is hopefully inconsistent. I think there's plays where he gets put in a bad situation, and I'd rather him not throw the picks. The pick at the end of the first half was a good pick to throw because it didn't really hurt Texas a ton. You would have liked to see him be able to get down there and get another score, but at the end of the day, that pick didn't cost them a game. It didn't put them in an unwinnable game position. So I think that's a good one to kind of get him back into his place. The running the ball, I get that you can be worried, but I think that's any quarterback, not just Quinn. You're talking about 95% of quarterbacks in college football that, when you play against a really good defense, they can have issues. Against Oklahoma, there's going to be some plays where he just looks like he's not a great quarterback. I'm not as worried about that. But let me know what your worries are. I think it's a legitimate worry. Don't get me wrong. I think those are legitimate worries. But they're not ones that I think can completely derail your season how I've seen them so far. 512-447-3776. 512-447-3776 is the new text number right here on the Horn, and we're going to be right back on the Sports Complex The Horn 1019, AM 1260, the Horn app, and hornfm.com. Back on the Sports Complex here on a Monday afternoon, getting you wrapped up from Texas, Kansas, getting you some wrapped up from the NFL weekend as well, and a big trade in the NBA finishes up. And all the NBA teams are coming into a media day as well. We should mention Jimmy Butler at some point today. We'll get to that. Playing hate songs this week. It's Texas OU week. Why not play some hate songs this week? Because it is 5:31 and OU still sucks. So we're going to play some hate songs for you all week long here on the Sports Complex. Also, the text line's running right now. The new text line, 512-447-3776. 512-447-3776 is the text line. That is open and running. We're asking you the poll of the day. Who was the MVP for Texas versus Kansas? You go easy, Quinn? I mean, Jonathan Brooks seems like a front runner with 200-plus yards rushing and 2 touchdowns. That is a hell of a game from Jonathan Brooks. I can't stop talking enough about that guy. There's a guy I told you earlier in the season I really wanted him to step up and be the guy. I think he's been proving that now against Kansas. I think he's the guy. So great to see that. Maybe it's Adonai Mitchell has a great game receiving. All those guys you could send him. Maybe Jalen Ford or Jahdae Barron on the defensive end. You got somebody else that you think had a big impact on this game. 512-447-3776. Any other Texas football, NFL you guys want to talk about? Any questions, concerns? If you think this is it, is this the season for Texas? We're not saying the B word. We're not saying if they're the B word. We don't want to say that. But if this team has a shot, if you really think they could be there, let me know. If you don't think they can, send that into 512-447-3776. The show is much more fun when you guys are involved and we can talk back to you. We're going to play a clip from the morning show, though, talking about their viewpoint from Kansas. They have some good stuff there, talking about their initial viewpoint from what happened this weekend, their first thoughts after a big game against Kansas this weekend. Let's hook them up with Ian Robbie every morning's right here at 6 to 11 a.m. And here's some Ian Robbie right now.
What are the odds of Texas playing 3 back-to-back backup quarterbacks in a row? What are the odds of that? When does that happen?
Is Dylan Gabriel hurt?
No, exactly. I don't know.
His back could seize up on Friday, right? Just like Jalen Daniels.
They need
to
keep that dude safe. They need to make sure he's locked up. Like, have y'all heard of that before? Those series? I mean, TCU was knocking. They knocked out quarterbacks though.
They did.
They were knocking out quarterbacks. If I'm not mistaken, they knocked out like 3 or 4 quarterbacks.
More than that. I think it was 5 or 6.
Yeah, they knocked out a bunch of them.
Well, they knocked out Dylan Gabriel last year, the week before the Texas game. That's when, with that really dirty hit, when he slid and the linebacker decked him and he didn't play.
They were knocking guys out. That's different than just not guys being unavailable.
Yeah.
It's man. Well, you know what? It takes a little luck if you want to go, you want to be a special team.
Yeah, ball's got to bounce your way. I mean, gosh.
I'll take it.
You got to stay as injury free as you can, and now the Longhorns are dealing with Jatavion Sanders as an ankle that they're hopeful is not structurally injured. He'll be okay. He's got to get the treatment this week, and he'll be good to go. But yes, I mean that is a break. I mean Jalen Daniels. All of a sudden, you're watching warm-ups. We did the pregame show on Saturday from Mockingbird, and all of a sudden you start hearing, wait a second, why is Jason Bean taking all the first-team throws on the field? Where's Jalen Daniels? He's not even out there.
Not even out there.
What the heck? Then, of course, his back seized up on Friday on the way down here.
Been an issue for him. Apparently, like in his career, he's been had back issues.
And if you have back issues, it can crop up at any time. You just
I guess
don't
he just
know.
slept wrong or something like that. I don't
Maybe
know what
on the
it was.
airplane.
Because he practiced all week, apparently.
Yeah. Well, that also, and
we'll take it. Okay.
I was pretty, even though it's 40-14 and Texas, was dominant. I was impressed with Kansas to have that happen. Not only did you not have your quarterback, Jason Bean didn't get a lot of reps all week long, right? All of a sudden, he's out there against this Texas defense. I thought they were admirable to make it a game and keep it a game and force some field goals early.
As they did. Yeah.
And obviously, they just wore out, and Texas is a really good team, and eventually just too much talent. But I think Kansas, they get Jalen Daniels back, they'll be battling for good things in the Big 12 this year. Nothing to hang their head about leaving this place. But Texas has now got another double-digit win over a ranked team. That's, 3? Double-digit wins. No, this week could be their 3rd.
Yeah, it's 2.
2
so
wins
far.
over a ranked team,
teams.
double digits both.
Yeah.
And and as you said with us on the Inside Texas Watch Along.
Yeah, I wasn't worried though about Kansas. I don't think anybody was. Well, maybe some people were. Some people made it stressed out early on. I don't think there was any reason to stress. I told you on the in-game live watch, which by the way, E. Hogan did a great job as always.
Thank you. We love doing that. Watching the game with you, the Texas fans.
Yeah, I was on with you during the second quarter. And it was tight during the second quarter. I know some Longhorn fans were upset about the option plays that the defense gave up. And I told you at the time, I said, there's nothing to worry about because that was the only thing Kansas could do.
The
And it wasn't
triple
like
option.
Yeah, and it wasn't like Texas wasn't going to adjust to it. They were going to eventually adjust, and when they adjusted, Kansas would have nothing. And that's essentially what happened. Was Texas was able to figure out the triple option, and they had nothing, and which made a lot of sense. And you pointed out early in the week, Texas hadn't seen the option. So they hadn't seen the option. First time they had seen it in real time, and they adjusted to the speed of it. And we've seen this now with this team, right? We saw Alabama game. Alabama had the run game working early on. And then PK and Texas shut it down. Hell, Wyoming had a couple of runs early on. We were able to get some things going, had that big run early, and then Texas pretty much for the rest of the game shut things down. And then once again we see it, the option for Kansas. It has some life early on, but then Texas decided to pretty much
shut it down.
Yeah, they shut it down.
Second half
really
they
well.
were really good. Outside of the one big play over the top, that was pretty thoroughly dominant defensively in the second half.
Yeah.
And you predicted that as we were watching the game. That's why you should watch that with us on the On Texas Football YouTube channel for Inside Texas, because Rod lets you know, the football theorist, he was not concerned. And but Longhorn fans are excited that something big's happening. This can be a championship run in their final year in the Big 12, and it seems like they've got the right mix of veterans and young players and talent to do it. And when you're kind of dancing around, because in the third quarter, when they hit that big bomb, and all of a sudden you think, oh gosh, we're one-score game here, and but they continue to show that they can pull away, right? They can stretch the lead, they can take over a football game, and that's impressive. That's impressive. Can I play you a little bit of Sark, his opening thoughts from the game after it was over?
Let's do it.
At 40-14. Here's Sarkin, kind of like you. He trusts his team. It's a 60-minute ball game. You're not going to win and dominate every single quarter of every single game. Here's Sark with an overview of what he saw on Saturday right afterwards.
The balance on offense was really critical. You can throw for over 300. You can rush for over 300 and have a 200-yard rusher and have two receivers basically have 100 yards receiving. That's good balance. The ball was getting spread around the right way today. We found explosive plays. We remained explosive as an offense today. But I thought defensively, they hit two plays. Outside of that, our defense really played really well again. And I think what they were able to do on third down and fourth down, I think against a team that was either number 1 or number 2 in the country on third down conversions, to hold them to 0 for 8 was really good football. And all in all, I'm proud of the guys. It was a heck of a win against a good football team. Great environment at DKR again. Great environment, and we set ourselves up for an awesome opportunity next week.
It will be an awesome opportunity, and once again for the defense, we thought it would be last week, and it wasn't. It'll be their first chance facing a good quarterback. They haven't faced a good quarterback yet.
You're right about that.
Right, Jalen Milrose, he's a good athlete playing quarterback. He's got elite traits at the quarterback position, but he wasn't a great quarterback. He even benched him after that. So Dylan Gabriel's a good quarterback. Hell, some would even say he's a great quarterback. And this will be the first test for the defense in that regard. I'm sure they're up to the task. But that's what I want to see. I'm really interested to see that. Matter of fact, it'll be the best quarterback they face all year.
Yeah,
pretty
Dylan,
much.
and he's off to a great start.
Jalen Daniels, was unavailable.
Yeah, I mean, look, I was surprised. I'll admit that Oklahoma hung 50 points on Iowa State Saturday.
I'm with you on that. Yeah,
Iowa State, we thought their defense could hold them back, but Iowa State, after that gambling scandal through the offseason, not the same team. We knew they struggled offensively, but man, 50 points against that team at Oklahoma on Saturday. Both teams handled their business emphatically. A 40-14 win for Texas. 50 points on the board for OU, both undefeated. And that will lead to a lot of hype. We mentioned College Game Day. We told you that last week, that if both teams win, you could expect College Game Day to be in Dallas, and they will be at the Cotton Bowl. That'll make it plenty of hype. When you bring College Game Day, Rod, that also brings now the Pat McAfee show will be there on Friday morning. That's been whether it was Duke or Colorado, they bring the whole thing down there on Friday. So it's kind of a 2-day thing now for College Game Day, covering the biggest game of the week, and this will certainly be that because. This is one of those, the Longhorns have been established as just under a touchdown favorite early, but same time, winner of this game, loser of this game, feels like they can get back and meet that team again. This could be one where we're looking at a rematch, but you'd rather go handle your business, put yourself in the driver's seat, and we have all week to preview that game, so looking forward to it. But this morning will be about looking back at what went well for the Longhorns on Saturday.
And, the JT Sanders injury it's concerning because I think he's going to be available because he's a freakish athlete, and they'll have great training sessions with him in the training room, and I think he'll be available. He probably won't practice much, but he's a guy that's a veteran and he knows the playbook, so he'll just be available. But if he's not 100% or even 90%, say he's like 75%, it does make him easier to defend.
It does.
And that's the thing, that he's the biggest matchup nightmare on your offense, period. Even more so than Xavier Worthy. Xavier Worthy is easier to neutralize because you can do it via coverages and a lot. You can double them. You can roll coverage to them. There's just other ways you can defend, more ways, I should say, you can defend Xavier Worthy. Not as much with JT Sanders. Only a few guys you can put on JT Sanders because of where you line him up, and Sark moves him around so much. So we'll get into it, the X's and O's of it in, behind the burn orange curtain. But it definitely changes the offense, the complexion of the offense a lot when JT Sanders is not, 100%.
I know.
Yeah.
Well, and as you said, if Dylan Gabriel doesn't get hurt at some point this week, the Longhorns will face their best quarterback that they face. So a lot of challenges there.
Yeah.
As for Sark's thoughts there, to have a 200-yard rusher, and let's give a bouquet to Jonathan Brooks. He just continues to emerge as the obvious RB1. C.J. Baxter had a decent game, but man, 21 carries, 218. And it's funny to watch him run these days, right? It's like he's a combination of Roschon and Bijan. He's not either of those guys, but he can shake it a little bit like Bijan does. He can make guys miss and force arm tackles because he's got a little wiggle to him. But he's got some power where he runs through arm tackles once he gets them off balance a little bit. And he has really broken out. The Baylor game was dominated by Jonathan Brooks, the Wyoming game, and then the end of the Alabama game. This guy has established himself as one of the best backs in the Big 12.
He is. He looks really. I think his ability, his balance at the second level is really impressive. That's why I think it's elite about him. That's why you can't really bring him down with one arm tackle. His balance is special, and he doesn't have breakaway speed, but he's got enough that if you don't have the right angle on him, he can pull away from you. And he is having probably early on some of these big breakaway plays more so than even Bijan and Rojo had, and I think it's because of the offensive line too. I think he's doing great. I'm not taking away from him, but I think it's a combination now of the maturation and the development and continuity of this O-line too, finding their groove, and they're physical now.
Yeah,
it's a physical bunch.
It is.
And so I think it's both.
It is, and then we've all said that if they can run the ball and establish that was the big question mark of the offseason, who replaces that production of those two great backs. That they're going to be really hard, and Quinn Ewers has really stepped in, and you can just see him getting more and more comfortable in this offense. 25 of 35, 321 yards and a touchdown. Also ran for another touchdown. He's become, the legs are a part of this offense now with his athleticism. And we'll hear Sark talking about it coming up. But with so much, especially after JT Sanders left, there's just going to be so much coverage devoted to X-Man Xavier Worthy. Well, Donnie Mitchell steps up with 10 catches, 141 yards and a touchdown. X-Man still got his, 7 for 93. So, this is a dynamic offense. We know that, and that's the one thing that jumped out to me. The emergence of Jonathan Brooks as a lead back, and then the development of Quinn Ewers. He's just getting more and more comfortable, more and more relaxed within this offense, and you just kind of see him flourish of what they need him to do and just to execute the offense.
Yeah.
Make throws.
You got the weapons that it's easy to find and manipulate the one-on-one matchups. When they decide, we got to roll coverage to Xavier Worthy, A.D. Mitchell's going to be one-on-one. A.D. Mitchell can win one-on-ones consistently. Jay Witt can win one-on-ones most of the time as well, too. So you just got guys that can win one-on-ones. All you got to do is trust your weapons. And I think he's right now playing some of his best football. And keep in mind, for Quinn, I do think the legs element, him now running a lot more, scrambling a lot more, I think that's Sark encouraging him, hey, if they give you the green grass, take it. And it is symbolic that that's the game now that he has. He just takes what the defense is giving him.
Yeah.
There's no need to, right? In his game right now, considering the weapons that he has, there's no need for him to try to do too much within the offense. All he has to do is just take the one-on-one. A.D. Mitchell's got one-on-one. I'll take it. You going to do that all game long? Okay. He'll have 10 catches for whatever he had, 141 yards. And I think the same thing happens when he decides to run. And some of that's game planning on the goal line when he has the quarterback keeper. That's Sark game planning. That's Sark telling Oklahoma, hey, just so you know, in the red zone, the goal line, which is something we'll also get into, the red zone. There's still coaching points, and that's one of them. But I love that play, had the quarterback keeper in the red zone on those plays now, because a lot of those defensive ends, they can't crash down on the run in the power run game in the red zone on the goal line, because now you have to worry about Quinn Ewers' legs.
Yeah. You
one
just do.
more thing you got to worry about.
Well, he's your leading touchdown scorer this year, right?
Right?
I mean,
It's like, that's crazy.
Yeah, and he's obviously the 20 pounds lighter, the little lighter in his step. He looks more athletic in the pocket, and then when he does take off, he's got more speed than you think.
That's some good stuff there from E and Rob B on Hook 'em Up, weekday morning 6 to 11 right here on the Horn. That was at the end of there. Exactly what you say is about this Quinn Ewers, which is taking his game to the next level, which is taking what's given to him, which, you could play an elite defense that gives you a lot less. And you're going to have to figure that out. But, when you have this many weapons, with a healthy JT Sanders, if he's able to come back, whether it's against OU or later on in the season, to be able to have enough guys that somebody's always pretty much going to be in one-on-one coverage. If no one's in one-on-one coverage, you should have a good enough O-line that you can go take 8 to 10 yards and be able to go. So, this is something that if Quinn Ewers can continue to play at this level of just kind of trying to do enough to win, then you win the battles, the small battles, and you don't have to have those big over-the-top plays. You're still going to get some of them because those little plays will open up into bigger plays, but you don't have to be kind of the live or die that Sark seemed to be in year 1 and 2. We're getting it further away from that, which is what you like to see, is a balanced, just smart offense that Tech's been playing the last few weeks. So hopefully that'll continue. We're going to come back. Get to your text, 512-447-3776, 512-447-3776. We will get to your text. We're asking you who was the MVP for Texas versus Kansas. Send that in. If you've got any concerns about this Texas team that you think may be a problem next week or going forward, if you think this team has the ability to be a team that goes all the way this year or pushes the limit, where do you think this team could end up? All of that. If you got any NFL talk as well, maybe how you're feeling about the Cowboys or Texans after another week there at NFL, hit us up, 512-447-3776. We'll start to get those texts. We come back, we'll get to the other part at the 6 o'clock hour and get into some NFL, some NBA, and more Texas, Kansas too. We'll go about all that right here on the Sports Complex in the Horn, 1019 AM 1260, the Horn app, and hornfm.com. Back at the Sports Complex on a Monday afternoon, playing some hate songs since it's a rivalry week against OU. George Strait, I hate everything for you. I don't play enough country on this show. It's what people tell me, at least. I don't play much country at all. It's not something I know. I have a vast knowledge of, but there's some George Strait for you. I hate everything on a rivalry week. Playing some hate music. Get everybody riled up with that George Strait. You know how you do it. Got the text line open. 512-447-3776. 512-447-3776 is a new text line. We're asking you who the MVP was against Kansas. We are talking about concerns or maybe no concerns. Maybe that you're feeling good. What do you think this team does better than you've seen any other Texas team do? What about it is making you drink the Kool-Aid? What about it is making you not drink the Kool-Aid? Let us know. And, of course, we're about to get to some NFL talks. If you got any NFL text, anything about the Cowboys, Texans, anything else you saw in a week you want to talk about, send in the text right now, 512-447-3776. Man, Chief Engineer says rivalry week stats don't matter as much. It's all about heart, confidence, and the will to not lose, which is somewhat true. That is, you need that on top of the stats because you're going to have to come out in Texas versus OU. Texas is ahead of schedule or is ahead of where OU is and trying to build back after Lincoln Riley took so many players. You played him last year. You got to remember last year you played him without Dillon Gabriel. They put in a quarterback who was not ready to play in that game. I don't think he was ready to play in any game, but he was definitely not ready to play in that game. And it kind of snowballed out of control. So Texas did win very easily, but there was some, it wasn't like that was 100% of what Oklahoma could be. So somewhat misleading if you're trying to look at that game for what this game will be. Dillon Gabriel, we assume is playing. I have to say we assume is playing because it is. I've been wrong 3 times this year under no fault of my own about which quarterback we're going to be playing. But no, I think you have the team that should be able to go out and beat an Oklahoma. They've had some, they've blown out some games against not great teams. They've been close against some teams that aren't, not perfect. They're definitely not as good as Texas, and they were a little bit closer. As much as we say that SMU game was a lot closer than that final score would show you. So, we know Oklahoma can play defense. They can try and get you. If Quinn has a really bad game, where do you like? Can Jonathan Brooks continue to have, the games he's been having? Those types of things you want to see. That is, I'm not worried about this team's resolve, especially against OU, considering they had the resolve against Alabama. They had the resolve against Kansas last week. I think they'll have the resolve against Oklahoma. But I think you need those other parts too, because there's been years Texas won on pure will. This should not be that year. This should be the year that Texas goes out and says, yeah, it's fun to play OU. I get Greg Sankey's here, and we're doing all this other stuff. But this is our year. Let's go get it. We get a text here. OU is the last real test on our schedule. Everything else is just a trap game where we should win, but if we don't show up, we can get beat. And I wouldn't say every game's a trap game. Kansas State's still going to be a good team. We know TCU lost again, so they're having some issues, but they're going to come to play hard. It's not so much a trap because you don't have that next week big game. Texas Tech is a trap game. We all know that one's a trap game because it'll be the end of the year. But it is. There's a certain line for Texas this year that is going to be, can you continue to play to the standard, or do you start to play down to your opponents and then have to flip that switch to get back to it when you get to the Big 12 championship game? You don't want to see that. You want to see them continue to play to a standard. Chan, PD, you were worried after the first half? Yes. I wasn't worried. I don't think I was worried after the first half. I wasn't thrilled that Texas wasn't able to turn it up in the first half. Yeah, Kansas really got one big play, so the defense held for the most part. You weren't happy with the red zone production, but again, it wasn't like the red zone, they couldn't do anything. They just, Sark called the wrong plays. He threw the ball 3 times in a row in the red zone on one. If you hand the ball to Jonathan Brooks would have another touchdown, in my opinion. But, Sark threw a lot of screens that weren't working. He was trying to set things up. And some of those things did work in the second half that he had set up, but they really did not work in the first half. So there was a lot of Sark's gameplay in the first half where he did not make the adjustments, a lot where, he tried to go a little cute against Kansas, and he should have just trusted that their physicality was going to be better than Kansas's. I wasn't too much worried because of how we'd seen them play this season. If this was last year, I would have been worried. But I wouldn't say I was worried. And if Jalen Daniels was playing, I probably would have been worried. but I felt Texas could be able to handle them in the second half, so I was not that worried about it. Let's get one more in before we get to break. Jonathan Brooks, MVP, averaged like around 10 yards per carry. Why did they not put him in more and keep substituting Baxter is beyond me. Drives kept stalling out with Baxter. Maybe Sark is saving Brooks for OU, but he could have come close to 300 yards versus KU if they used him like Bijan. I will tell you why they kept subbing him out, and they should keep subbing him out. Two reasons. One, there is a mileage on every single player. You don't want to overuse him and get him possibly hurt when a game where he's already running the ball like crazy. And you want to get Baxter ready. You need Baxter to be good because you need to have multiple running backs in today's game. So I get why they did. He could have done better. He's running like crazy right now, and it's a great time for it because we're going to be playing OU. But I agree. For me, Jonathan Brooks is the MVP. I'm so happy about it. I want to talk more about Jonathan Brooks when we get back at the top of the hour. We'll get into some NFL, some NBA talk as well, and more of your text. 512-447-3776. Keep those texts coming in. We're going to keep reading them. Who's your MVP? What do you think about Texas? What do you think about the Cowboys? What do you think about the Texans? Send all that in. 512-447-3776. We'll be right back on the Sports Complex on the Horn 1019 and 1260, the Horn app, and hornfm.com. Hour 2 here on the Sports Complex. Getting into some NFL talk. Getting into a little MLB talk. Drew Holiday is traded, finishes out that Damian Lillard trade. Maybe we'll get into some emo Jimmy as well. And, of course, getting more of your text here on the text line. Talking to you guys. You make the show go. 512-447-3776 is the new text line number. But yeah, we'll talk a little bit more Texas and Kansas. We asked you on the text line, 512-447-3776. Who is your MVP from Kansas? Getting a lot of good answers on that. We do get yours is still young and learning from Oklahoma. Greg, yours is still young and learning, but Sark will continue to make sure he has success and confidence in the OU game. I think that's one of the things that Sark is doing well with Ewers this year is figuring out that he wanted to give Ewers his confidence by getting the ball downfield and making those big plays, because everything for Sark started and ended with that the big plays and the explosive plays. That was where it was, and if you don't have those, you can't win. And when he realized, well, we can kind of get I think what he saw was the other teams doing against Texas, and he said, oh, well, we can get those. Anybody can get explosive plays. They happen, but if you're forcing them, they don't always happen. So what you need to get the rest of the game, and then the explosive plays will happen inside of that. How do we get Ewers to feel confident? We just kind of give him reads and options that he can function under and find the guy with the man. And I don't care if we really wanted this play to go this way, but instead of telling him in the meetings, hey, we're really hoping we can bust a big one, Xavier Worthy's on the outside, and him trying to force that one in, then, man, Adonai Mitchell's on the other side. And he's wide open. He's in man coverage. He's going to win that. And, there was a couple plays, and Jay Witt's open. Go get the ball to Jay Witt. He threw a couple of them off, but they worked. So I love it. I love what Ewers is doing right now, and I love how Sark is using him. Piper has said that we need the offensive line and Jay Brooks to control the clock and plus 100 yards rushing. JB for MVP. I said at the beginning of the season, we were talking about running, and it kind of concerned me that Sark kept acting like there wasn't a starting running back. And in his mind, there wasn't yet. I don't know if what his game was, or we may never know what the entirety of what was going on in Sark's mind. But Sark at the beginning of the season was saying, I don't know. No one's really set themselves apart as a running back. So, and then week 1, he puts Baxter out there. He said, Jonathan Brooks should be a third-year guy. We've seen what he can do. We've seen him play. He should be the guy. But I don't know why, but the fact that he wasn't getting those reps because he wasn't getting the acknowledgement from Sark, he said, I don't know, and I don't believe he's going to be the guy. C.J. Baxter gets hurt in that Alabama game, and whatever Sark did, whether it was calculated, that he was just trying to get Jonathan Brooks to put in that little bit of extra effort, what it was, we saw him do what we asked him to do, which was step up and take the position. Don't wait for it to be yours. Take the position. And you can't say anything, but since Alabama, in the second half of the Alabama game, he has taken the running back position, and he has no signs of giving it back. So it's a huge, huge difference in game now that you say, oh, no, not that we have a running game, but we have an explosive, crazy good running game that now you have to overly prepare for. I'm sure there's some guy, Brent Venables is sitting right now and having to say, well, what are we going to pick our poison? Are we going to try and shut down the running game and let Quinn Ewers try and beat us? Before we thought, well, we have to shut down Quinn Ewers and then let the running game try and beat us. But we've seen every other team has tried that. And Jonathan Brooks starts beating them so bad, they have to come up, and then Quinn Ewers just taking what they give him, and he goes off and beats them. It's a completely different game plan this season with everything going on. But Jonathan Brooks adds a huge element that, from the bowl game last year where the running game was almost non-existent, cost Texas the game, to now, night and day difference. We get blind Longhorn fan. Did the morning show just say Brooks is Bijan and Roshan? No, he said they're pieces of them. So he said he took part of both of their games. So yeah, they did not. It is not just them, and the MVP is back spasms. That's a kind of reductive way to look at it. To say that this team, if Jalen Daniels played, that Texas would have lost or whatever. If you want to hate on Texas, hate on Texas. But I don't know if that's the case. I think Texas, I think when you say a guy ran for 200 yards against the defense, that might be a bigger MVP than Jalen Daniels, who could have had a good game. And like a blind Longhorn fan, Brennan Thompson is going off against Texans, showing Sark what he missed out on. I don't believe that's going to be the case. He could have a big play, though. He could have had a good play. Brennan Thompson was good. He just wasn't ever in that world of trust that Sark is so devoted to. He really wants to trust this guy. Brennan Thompson dropped too many passes, and that will end up pushing you out. We get from Scarlett, it is RRR week. That's hard to say, too. RRR week is just as hard as the Red River rivalry, which, by the way, if you were at a bar and you want to make sure anybody is still allowed to drink at the bar if they're not too drunk, just make them say Red River rivalry. It's one of the reasons why Bud is one of the biggest drinks, because you can say, just give me a Bud. And Miller Lite is harder to say the drunker you get. So Bud Light, easy to say drunk. It's great marketing. It was a wonderful weekend for Texas sports. Rangers clinched, Stros clinched, Texans won, Cowboys won, and our Longhorns won. It was a great weekend. I enjoyed it, and as an Astros fan, I enjoyed it because that Sunday, watching the Cowboys blown away from it, so I could focus somewhat on the from the Astros and Rangers. It was a lot of fun. This year's Horns look to get stronger as the game progresses instead of struggling to finish or even maintain intensity. That is a lot of what it is that rotation on the defense, I think, is helping a lot with Sark. That damn sideways screen against OK will go for negative yards and 2 turnovers. I hate that play. I'm not a huge fan of it either. I know he's trying to set it up because he's trying to set other things up, and he loves the two-way pass on that as well and seeing if it's there. But I'm not a huge fan of it. I think he goes to it too much. And my dad even texted me that. He's like, why does he keep running this play? I'm like, I get what he's doing, but you don't need to do it as much as he's doing it. Man, I'm not going to lie. From Coach Cornnuts, man, I'm not going to lie. I'm super excited about the Texans again. My gut said D'Amico Ryans was the right guy, but it was hard to believe it first. Love the way the team is playing. Hoping they only get back better when some guys get back from injury. I'm close to putting $100 on them to win the AFC South because nobody else there is going to run away with it right now. Another texter, impressive job by D'Amico Ryans' Texans defense and how well rookie quarterback C.J. Stroud is playing despite the injuries on O-line. If you look at the AFC South right now, we'll get into a little NFL. We'll get back to your text in just a second. If you look at the AFC South right now, I just saw a tweet about it, which I just retweeted. If you follow me on Twitter @It's Patrick Davis, you can find it there. But basically showing the AFC South is very on brand. Everybody is 2-2, and if you look at the point differentials of most of these teams, the point differential of points scored and points against for these teams through 4 weeks is all within 3 points, except for the Texans. The Texans have actually pulled away from that by putting up some big numbers. The Texans are playing really impressive. They get that 30-6 win over the Steelers. They're starting to figure out how to use Dameon Pierce in this lineup a lot more. Bobby Slowick's progression is one of the more impressive things about this because Bobby Slowick, the offensive coordinator that came over from San Francisco, and I talked about this on Ball Don't Lie with Rod, that what we were worried about with the Texans is you're worried about that this coaching staff basically came in with no experience. Everyone was doing the biggest job they'd ever done. And so now the Texans are starting to figure out some of those things. They're dealing with a ton of injuries. They had a third stringer offensive lineman at 4 of the 5 positions. Shaq Mason, God bless him, is the only guy out there who is a original starter, the guy they traded for. So, it's been a crazy year of offensive line and moving around, but Bobby Slowick is learning very quickly of how to deal with those things, moving stuff around, putting different, massive credit to the wide receivers. If you watch the game and wide receivers blocking and having to get into this and going to the outside where you're letting guys come in on the inside and trying to funnel guys through the middle more as run blockers, and then on the outside, relying on wide receivers to break some of these plays open. That's how they're getting some of these runs. It's just been a masterful job to try and get them ready. And C.J. Stroud right now is playing like clearly the Rookie of the Year front runner, but got to give Texans fans a ton of hope. D'Amico Ryans, I think, has done a great job. J.J. Watt was in town this weekend, being put in the Ring of Honor, and he was talking about how D'Amico Ryans not only has this massive defensive knowledge, but a lot of times guys that have that have a hard time transferring that knowledge to the players that are on the field of how do you get them to make the reads and how do you get them to step up and play it a better way. And he's been able to do that. So defensively, this team is stepping up. We knew when Jalen Petrie came back that it was going to help out with with Ward and Petrie back there, Jimmy Ward and Jalen Petrie as the safeties, it was going to shore up this secondary a lot. You hope Stingley's able to come back, and this secondary could be something pretty special for the Texans. But yeah, definitely exciting to see them come out. The Steelers just didn't look good in that game ever, and they're dealing with their own stuff. But I wouldn't discount the Texans. They don't have that hard of a schedule. You're playing against the AFC South, which isn't great. You're playing against some other divisions that aren't great. You don't have the hardest schedule in the NFL this year. You can come out of this and win 6 games. I think. I think 5 or 6 games is not unbelievable. Now, some people are saying AFC South. I'm not sure if they're there yet. You'd have to see them be able to sustain this type of play. I'm not sure they're there yet, but it's definitely possible. It's definitely possible. Chief Engineer, it's rare 2 top picks work out. Will Anderson and C.J. Stroud showing out. I agree with you. That is something that's crazy that, you gave up a lot for those picks, but they seem to be working out right now. Nick Caserio saving his job. The Popcorn Man is just checking in to say Texas OU week and OU still sucks. I appreciate that. It is 6-18 and OU still sucks. Both lines is what you're giving the MVP from Mr. Carolina. Both offensive and defensive line. Yeah, the lines are playing great right now. We see that with Jonathan Brooks, of course, going for 218. You can't say that the offensive line is not playing up to par, or the defensive line when you're stopping Kansas from what they're doing. You need to be physical. How many all have the oldest cliche in the book? You start winning games at the line, and coaches try and get away from that when they can't recruit the line. The Pancake Factory and now the defensive line, you're really starting to build that up. And I think Sark has done a great job with, kind of figuring out the type of players he wants. It was born the Red River Shootout, and it will die the Red River Shootout. None of it matters. It's Texas OU. That's what I call it. I call it Texas OU because that's easier to say. That's what it is. I know they want to call it. I never called it the Red River Shootout either, by the way. I never needed the fancy name for it because I cared about what was on there. I know they want to do it it's all for marketing. So it's the so-and-so Red River rivalry or so-and-so Red River Shootout. I'm not going to say the name of that, then I don't got to say the other thing. It's called Texas OU. We don't got to give it a fancy name. I know they want to make it. Look, the best name there is for all of those, the best name, and by the way, you can send in what you think the best name is for a rivalry game. You can send that in. I'd love to hear if you have a better one. I know what the best one in my mind is Bedlam. And that's for all their events. It's not just one game, but it's Bedlam. It's just a great name. It's one word. It means like craziness and all. I'm all for it. Bedlam is the best for me. Just one word. Just give me one word that's easy to say. I like that. So if you had a better rivalry name, or if you want to rename the Red River rivalry, because I can't even say it now, 512-447-3776. Send that in. I appreciate it. Jonathan Brooks resembles of Jamal Charles at times. I could see that in the years Horns look to get stronger as game progresses instead of struggling to finish. Yeah, Brooks does resemble Jamal Charles. He resembles a lot of guys. He has a lot of pieces of a lot of players, and that's what Aaron was saying earlier. It's pieces of Bijan, pieces of Roschon. It looks like he's got a lot of different pieces, and it's scary to think that if he ever finally puts it together to have his own identity. But right now, I don't know how much better you could expect Jonathan Brooks to be playing, just putting all these pieces together and becoming this kind of Megatron of all these players. He's not Bijan of everything. He's not Roschon of everything Roschon could do. He's not everything Jamal Charles could do, but he's putting those pieces together and looks really, really good. I feel that, Blind No Longer fan, I feel Sark is still holding back some wrinkles that he will unleash on Oklahoma, like more attempts at punt blocking. Yes, the punt blocking has been disappointing. You want to see more of that. I think he's been playing it safe in the first half because he doesn't want to give up a big penalty and get behind, which I get. You don't want to kind of go for it, give him a first down, score a touchdown, and now you're down, you're trying to fight back, and it just kind of, really the defense doesn't like it because now their, special teams screwed it up. And then in the second half, by the time they get to the point where you can kind of go for it, they put up those 21 points so fast that all of a sudden you don't want to go for it because now it's run up the score. So I think that there's only been like 3 or 4 punts where he really feels like he could go for it, and they've kind of gone for some of it, but I do want to see one as well. I think last year you had to go for it more because you just weren't playing as well as you were this year. Daydrinker77 says Sark for MVP. He made adjustments and got the job done in the second half. I like that. I'd still give it to Jonathan Brooks, because if Jonathan Brooks doesn't run as well as he does, that game plan doesn't work as well. And also because Sark refused to run the ball in the red zone over and over until the fourth quarter, until the third and fourth quarter. If he would have done that in the first half, we could have been even quicker. I do want to get some Cowboys talk real quick before we get to break. The Cowboys win 38-3 against the Patriots. There's not a ton to go through in this. We did see the running game. Tony Pollard only gets 11 carries. We talked about it last week. He had more carries than anybody else through the first 3 weeks, any other running back. So you saw them try and pull back on that. They had the lead, give him a little bit of rest, pull him back because they do need him for a long season. Rico Dowdle ends up going out there, playing okay, but gets hurt. When we talked, Ty Henderson actually brought it up to my attention, and I thought it was a good point that he wanted to see Rico Dowdle get some more carries. He definitely would have in this game. However, he ends up getting hurt, gets hit in the hip, and he is being evaluated right now. So they put in Deuce Vaughn. Deuce Vaughn's not that guy in that position. I don't know if he'll ever be at that kind of running back. I think you can use him in packages, but where he was used, he just didn't ever get it going. You're going to have to figure out something. If Rico Dowdle is not your guy, and I know the injury now kind of sets that back a little bit, you're going to have to find another running back. If Tony Pollard goes down right now, I don't know how that offense keeps going. Dak Prescott looked pretty good. They're killing the teams they're supposed to kill. You kind of want that if you're a Cowboys fan. You want to see them kill the teams they're supposed to kill. But, you can't you can't just rely on killing the teams you want to kill. So you're playing San Francisco this week. This is the week that you kind of have to pull out all the stops and see if Dak Prescott is able to play against the defense with the rush coming in. When the defense, now that you're not playing with the lead, that you have to go out and try and make some bigger plays. Are you going to be able to get Brandon Cooks more involved? I don't know why Brandon Cooks does not seem to still be involved. CeeDee Lamb made some huge plays. You got him more involved. Michael Gallup looks good. But yeah, Tony Pollard, they were saving him up clearly for next week because it's a huge game against San Francisco. We're going to take a break. When we come back, I'll talk some NBA. We'll read some more of your texts, and we'll talk about what the Texans did. I want to play this clip about Rod Babers, Malik Ogbo, and JT Sanders. It's interesting stuff. I'm going to play all that for you when we get back here on the Sports Complex on the Horn 101.9 AM 1260, the Horn app, and at hornfm.com. Back on the Sports Complex here on the Horn, playing some hate songs for you this week. Because it's Texas OU week and it's 6:29 and OU still sucks. So we're playing some hate songs here on the Sports Complex. You got any good hate songs? Send them in too. I don't have the full playlist picked this week, but you guys are driving the show. You know that 512-447-3776. Bevo Angel does say. Texas proved they're an elite defense against Kansas. By the way, the Longhorns found their number one running backs in Jonathan Brooks. I don't know if I'd say elite because Jalen Daniels didn't play. You were playing against a backup quarterback who didn't get first rep snaps. You did allow 2 big plays over the top. You probably could have held this team to 7 or 6 or something like that. I'm still not gonna say elite. But I'm gonna put them out there that they're doing really, really well. I do think they're a national championship defense. So I won't say elite. I won't say this defense is one of the best all time because that's kind of elite. You have to be that you're thought in the pantheon of greats. I wouldn't put them there yet because we're only 5 games in. They have a chance to be. I think you may need. You didn't really get as many turnovers as you would like in this game, so maybe a couple of turnovers. But again, you beat Oklahoma. You come in there and show Oklahoma who's boss, and you go against a Dillon Gabriel, who we assume is playing. You got to say that now. You're a Texas fan because too many weeks we've gotten a backup quarterback, so we assume Dillon Gabriel is playing, and no reason to not assume he would. But if you can slow down Dillon Gabriel, this Oklahoma offense that has looked pretty good. The SMU game they were slowed down, Cincinnati game they were slowed down, so I think you can slow them down. But if you hold them to under 15 points, then that's where this defense steps up to another level. But Jalen Ford, Jahdae Barron leading this team right now. Tavondre Sweat on the defensive line, Byron Murphy. They're looking really good. They're just looking really good. So I'm with you. I'm not going to go elite yet. I'm just not going to say it yet. I want to get through one more game before I'm going to give them this could be that team, but we'll see. Talk about rivalry names because I don't care for Red River rivalry. None of us do. Oregon versus Oregon State, the Civil War is a pretty badass name for a rivalry. I like it, but it seems too manufactured still. I need something that's kind of one person thing. I like it. It's better than Red River Shootout. It's better than Red River Rivalry because neither team's on the Red River either. I get that's in between us, but as far I don't think either team really associates with the Red River. I get Texas here and you can go, but I don't associate with it. I used to drink a lot on Red River and go see a bunch of bands down there on the street. I don't know. I say it's never been the name for me, but I just call it Texas OU. But if you got a better nickname you want to throw out there, go for that one. Man, Nate says, Dak played well. Someone can say that today instead of how bad the Pats are. Look, the Pats are terrible. We know that. Mac Jones has not been able to step up. Bill O'Brien hasn't been able to figure out this offense and get them where they need to be. We know that. Ezekiel Elliott, as much as everybody was trying to make it because he had that one big game where he was able to run for 80 yards, everybody thought he was going to blow it out. I think he had 6 carries for 16 yards. Didn't look like he did anything big. Ramondre Stevenson did okay. The offense, the Pats do suck. I agree. You can look at this Cowboys team and say they beat 3 bad teams. We know Zach Wilson showed up against the Chiefs last night. We know that. I'm with you. A lot more is going to be explained when we see them against the 49ers in Week 5. When we get to next Monday, when everybody's going to be either freaking out or drinking Kool-Aid, Cowboys are taking on the 49ers. Texas takes on OU. Rangers are in the playoff. Astros are in the playoffs. Hopefully the Rangers are playing, the Rangers and Astros wouldn't meet until the ALCS, and boy, that would be a great ALCS. I'd love to see that. Love to see that, especially because I'm an Astros fan, and, the Astros have kind of had the Rangers number. But, yeah, it's going to be a big weekend in sports here. I'm with you on that, Nate. I'm with you that we can't say that much. Chief Engineer Deuce Vaughn, an old-school scat back, useful in certain situations, not a workhorse. I agree, he's not a workhorse, but you don't even need him to be a workhorse. You need him to get 10 carries and be able to average 3 yards a carry. He can't do that. I'm not asking for him to carry 25, 30 times a game and be a workhorse. Like Tony Pollard was more the guy who said, I don't know if he can be a workhorse, but I don't know. Nate, Ugly Kid Joe already played that song this morning. Already played it. First song I played. Easy out. Get it out of the way. I hate everything about you as an easy one. What does TJ Horn say? The River War. I don't know about that one either. It's closer. The River Horn. I don't know. I'm not on the River War. So I'm not on that one. I do want to mention something about the NBA real quick and I'm going to play this other clip for you. We're going to try and get to everything. Drew Holiday was traded to the Celtics to close out that trade with Damian Lillard, where Damian Lillard traded the Blazers, traded the Bucks. Blazers end up with DeAndre Ayton. They end up getting Drew Holiday. They said they're going to trade him. They trade him to the Celtics. I don't get this trade to the Celtics at all. Not a real fan of it. I know a lot of people are. Robert Williams is a good player, but you can't play him in the same time as DeAndre Ayton. So now you've traded for two guys in the trade that can't be on the court at the same time because neither one can stretch the floor. And if you do that, you're basically taking Scoot Henderson out of the game because you can't tell him he's just going to shoot threes and not be able to drive. Helps the defense out too much. So I just don't like that. I don't think that's a solid trade. Unless you're planning to trade one of them again, in 2 or 3 months. I don't like getting two guys in a trade that you can't play together. And Malcolm Brogdon, they said they didn't want to guard. You basically added Robert Williams to that trade. Malcolm Brogdon's kind of a poor man's Drew Holiday. He's a good 6 man. Maybe that's what you're going to use him for. Hopefully he comes through, but he's only 3 years younger than Drew Holiday. You get another 2029 first-round pick that may be good, maybe not. The 2025 first-round pick from Golden State does nothing for you. Does absolutely nothing. It's a late first-round pick. You maybe get a guy who maybe plays on your bench in a couple years, but nothing big out of that. I just don't get it. And for Boston, Drew Holiday's a great, it's a step up. And now Derek White can go to your bench, be a really good bench player. Maybe you move off him, but Drew Holiday, I get you want to add him in because you lost Marcus Smart. But I don't know who's protecting the rim there anymore. I know Robert Williams missed a lot of games, but Porzingis ain't a rim protector. He don't want to be. I don't know who, unless you're going to listen to Drew Holiday. Are you going to listen to him? Because Mazzulla is not a leader. He hasn't shown that he's been a leader so far. Jason Tatum doesn't listen to him. Jaylen Brown doesn't listen to him. Is Porzingis going to listen? Who's going to lead this team? I know people are all up on it. I don't see it with the Celtics. I don't feel like they're tough enough right now. Can they be tough? I don't feel it for them at all. Somebody who is tough. JT Sanders gets rolled up on in the game. JT Sanders gets rolled up, misses some of the game. We don't know if he's going to be back or not. Sark said today he's going to tell us more on Thursday. I assume it's going to be a game time decision, whether or not he may not, they may have amputated the foot. He's still going to be a game time decision because that's kind of the gamesmanship that has been going on a lot this year. But Rod Babers did talk today on Ian Rod B about something that the Horns did to change it up when JT Sanders went out. It's going to be something to watch for as they play OU next weekend. Here's Rod Babers from Ian Rod B this morning talking about what the Longhorns did after JT Sanders' injury.
One of the unfortunate storylines coming out of the Texas-Kansas game, because there are a lot of good things, was the injury to JT Sanders. There's no structural damage, so he's got to go through some training room sessions, and he'll be able to play. We just don't know if he's going to be 90%, 70%, whatever it may be. But there was an adjustment made. That happened at the end of the first quarter. Maybe it was the beginning of the second quarter. It was right around that time where the injury happened. And the adjustment by Sark was the Big 12 package, which is their extra offensive lineman, the Malik Agbo package. They throw him out there as the extra offensive lineman. In that game, they played more of that 6-0 line package than they've played in any game since Sark's been the head coach at Texas. They introduced this package last season. I believe it was against ULM where they introduced the package. And they honestly run it in most of their games, but never to the extent or at the rate they ran it in the Kansas game. That's the most, and based on my notes, that's the most snaps of it. And Malik Agbo, I think, had 22 snaps according to Pro Football Focus. So the most snaps of that 6-0 line package they've had. The beauty of it is, when they throw out of it, they were 6 of 6 when they threw out of it versus Kansas, and averaged over 16 yards per attempt. It's one of those packages where it presents you with so many threats in the running game, especially because Texas was running it so well, that you have to respect the run. You can almost guarantee against a lot of teams one-on-ones on the outside. Now, they could decide, no, we're not going to let Texas win the one-on-ones on the outside. And by the way, you're running your offense with fewer receivers when you decide to do that too. You're going to run your offense usually with their Big 12 package. JT Sanders was the tight end, but he gets hurt. It's Gunnar Helm now. He's the other tight end. Malik Agbo is considered their other big tight end for the Big 12 package. 1 back, 2 tight ends. And then they'll have Xavier Worthy and A.D. Mitchell. Or they could have Xavier Worthy and Jay Witt. Only the 2 receivers out there. And then they'll have 1 back in their game. And they run a lot of 3 receiver routes. Hell, they'll even run some 2 receiver routes, but they're long developing routes, as you just pointed out, 16.6 yards per attempt, because they got extra offensive linemen in there to help them block to get those routes developing downfield. And we're talking about, I mean, I would say in one of those 6 O-line packages, you saw them running deep curls and deep outs. I mean, you got Sark's now running 17-yard curls in his offense to Xavier Worthy, which is, as a defensive back, I can tell you, is just unheard of. You got to have a quarterback that can make those throws confidently, which Quinn Ewers can. There's a different element to that. I think maybe that's just kind of stretching out the opposing defense. But in the Oklahoma game, I believe what they're going to do to supplement some of the JT Sanders play, if he can't, play at 100%, or they want to have him on a pitch count, it'll be that Big 12 package. Most he's ever played, and it's probably the best and the most effective that I've seen their Big 12 package too, which makes sense because they're so deep on the O-line. But they did not have an incompletion out of the Big 12 package in that Kansas game. Over 16 yards per attempt, and the explosive play rate. They had 3 explosive plays of over 15 yards or more passing the football out of the Big 12 package. Because, like I said, it almost guarantees one-on-ones. If they decide that they want to win the numbers game in the passing game, they can. But then you're going to get whipped and bullied up front. Because Texas has basically, with all the, I don't know exactly, I think their average weight for the offensive linemen is, 325?
Yeah.
Something like that. So, I mean, that's a lot of man. You're talking about damn near close to at the tight end, they're close to 2,000 pounds of human up there. And you don't want to be defending that with a light box.
Well, and that's a scary proposition. You're mentioning. I mean, that's obviously something Brent Venables is going to be looking at this week. I mean, it's one thing if you got that wall in front of Quinn Ewers, who has one of the best arms in college football, and then you've got guys like A.D. Mitchell and Xavier Worthy. Your defensive backs can do a good job, but they can't cover them for 5 or 6 seconds.
It's impossible. Yeah. 17-yard curls. I'm like, come on, man. I'm not supposed to have to cover a 17-yard curl, coach.
Yeah. And then you got this guy with a rifle on his right arm who can deliver that pass on point. And Quinn was really spinning it. I thought he was ripping it nice on Saturday, stepping into those throws. He made one throw down near the goal line where he kind of fell off his back foot and almost threw an interception, threw it behind Jay Witt. But and Quinn did throw his first pick of the year.
Yes, he did.
At the end of the first half when he was trying to force a ball and trying to get a field goal before the end. That's one he'd like to have back. But other than that, Quinn has had really good ball security. And you're right, that presents a real problem to a defense.
Especially for if you're an undersized defense. And by the way, Oklahoma, their defensive line is not necessarily a really, big, gargantuan, humongous defensive line. They haven't gotten there yet because Brent Venables is still a little bit behind in getting those big bodies. I think for Sark, maybe he unveiled this not only because he wants Oklahoma to have to prepare for everything, right? We talked about his campaign of misinformation, but I think it's something you may see because he believes that he can bully Oklahoma a little bit, and that'll keep Dillon Gabriel and that offense off the field. And I think he may be thinking, if we end up in some type of shootout, this will be the best way for me to help play complementary football. He talks about it all the time, and help my defense out. I can just keep Dillon Gabriel off the field and play some bully ball with 6 offensive linemen out there. And we'll see what the counter will be. I think the counter is going to be for Venables. He's going to blitz a lot. And we talked about this. Remember I told you I think Kansas should have been blitzing on rundowns. I talked about that in the pregame. I've been blitzing on rundowns, and then you want to try to make sure you can get after Quinn, whether it be simulated pressures or whether it be second-level pressures on third downs, on predictable passing downs. I think Oklahoma on early downs, they're going to blitz just because they got to make plays in the backfield against Texas. You get Texas offensive line going, like I said, with 6 offensive linemen, damn near 2,000 pounds of mass and girth coming at you. It's hard for you just to hold up and be stout unless you got big bodies. Oklahoma doesn't have those big bodies. The best thing they can do is penetrate and kind of slash through and try to make plays in the backfield with faster, undersized guys.
Well, as we mentioned, now coming back from the break, Oklahoma does lead the Big 12 in total defense as far as points allowed, just 10 points a game. But this is obviously their biggest test to this point. They have not played a great offense, but Texas has gotten the benefit of playing backup quarterbacks each of the last 3 weeks. And heck, even Jalen Milroe was so bad against Texas, they benched him the next week. So, we'll see. This Dylan Gabriel's a 6-year player. He's a really good player, but it still comes down. You played in that game, Rod, 4 times?
Yeah,
it comes down to players. It's a players' game. You got to make plays.
Got to make plays there. We're going to come back. Text line still open, 512-447-3776. We will come back, wrap up the show here on a Monday afternoon, right here on the Sports Complex in the Horn, 101.9 AM 1260, the Horn app, and hornfm.com. Wrapping things up here on the Sports Complex here on the Horn. It is last call. Thanks, everybody, for playing along on the text line today. 512-447-3776. Save it. Join in the conversation every day here on the Sports Complex. It makes it so much more fun when you guys are part of the show. Our friend Chief Engineer does try and give some names. We asked you guys for some names for the Red River rivalry that we could say a little bit easier, that were better. I'm a Texas OU guy. That's what I say, but you get trash versus class. Trailers versus towers. Not bad. Both those are pretty good. I don't know if I'm going to say Austin is class, though. I think Austin's a great city. I think there's a lot of things, but one of the reasons I like it is because it's not just a straight classy place. I don't like classy. I'm a fan of the bars that are darker and dive bars and the music scene and all that. It doesn't have to be classy, but I like it. We get it's not one word, but I still like it, from Blind Longhorn fan, of the State Fair Street Fight. I like the State Fair Street Fight too. It's still a little bit longer. I like, because Bedlam's the one. Bedlam is the best one in my opinion. But I know that there's some there that the State Fight Street Fight is not a bad one. But it is. I still go Texas OU is what I go. If you have any more, send those in. I'll get to them before the end of the show. Chan does say the team, you said the game with more talent. I think the team with more talent doesn't necessarily win this game. That's true. It's always in a rivalry game. The team with more talent doesn't win the game. However, if you are a team that is playing well, that you are a team that is handling with their business, you are a more physical team, you can do a lot of these things, then you should be able to go out there and impose your will. Now, Oklahoma's going to put up their best fight. We know that. We know that that's why this is a rivalry game. It's not like you can sit around and say it's a 95% chance Texas wins. That's silly to say. But I do think that this is a team with two coaches that are going to be coming into it a much more strategical game plan and strategic game plan that they want to see, what they want to see implemented. I'm not sure that Brent Venables is the guy who's going to be really pushing for, we got to win this. That is a thing. That was a Tom Herman thing, that it was much more emotional coach. Charlie Strong was a much more emotional coach. Neither one of these guys is necessarily the most emotional coach. They're going to try and get their guys hyped up, but it is about implementing things, focus, and performing at the level you need to perform, and not necessarily trying to step out and overdo things and not follow what the coaches say. Both these guys really like to have control, so it may not be that as much, but I like it. Waterloo, you know what? I'm fine. Waterloo's okay too. That's not a bad one. I don't know if it implies. I like all these. I don't know if we're going to find the right answer. I think that we would have found the right answer. It already happened. I appreciate everybody trying. If you have one, State Fair Street Fight is one, and I think my man Craig Way came up with that one, the great Craig Way. That's a solid one. It's a great one. It's much better than Red River Rivalry. We know that, if we're going to go with that one. But again, it has the same problems as Shootout. That people don't want to say it because it's Shootout, and it's all about corporate advertising, so that's why they won't use it. But, it is what it is. Reminder, tomorrow, Rangers pregame right here at 1:30 on the Horn, 2 p.m. First pitch. We'll see how long that game goes. There may be some interruption of the Sports Complex tomorrow. We do not know yet how long that game will go, if it'll finish early and we'll be on at regular time. But whenever it finishes, we'll be right back here on the Horn. And remember that Friday we will have a big show happening. Aaron Hogan's going to be going to Dallas at Terry Black's in Dallas, hanging out with the Inside Texas guys. They're going to be doing a show out there. Joining me on ours here is Rob Babers is going to come in to help me out with here in the studio. So a big, giant 3-hour pregame we're going to be working on Friday that we want everybody to join us for, to get you ready for Texas OU, because it is an 11 a.m. tip. So they're going to be doing the morning show, the pregame show, the morning of Texas OU. A lot of coverage, but since it is 11 a.m., the night before, we want to get you even more prepared. It is Texas OU weekend, and this week, this year, it matters a lot. This is 2 undefeated teams. This is 2 top 25 teams. This is playoff implications. This is Big 12 championship implications this week at OU. So a huge week that we're going to have. Friday is going to be a lot of fun with Aaron Hogan and Rod Babers. Appreciate everybody joining us on the text line tonight. We will give a shout out tonight. We do have the Giants and Seattle 2.5 point favorites. Giants are Saquon Barkley is officially rolled out. If you're like me, then you're rooting for a Darren Waller big game. I don't think it's going to happen, though. Seattle, for me, I like Seattle in the numbers because I like Seattle to cover. I just feel better. I like both coaches, but I think that Seattle is just a little bit more there as a team. Without Saquon Barkley, I don't know if the balanced attack can happen for the Giants. They're going to have to do this defensively, really, against Geno Smith and this Seattle team. So I'm going to go with Seattle in this game. But, whoever. We just hope for a good game tonight, guys. Let's hope for a good game. That's what we're going for. We'll be back tomorrow. After the Rangers game, we'll be right here, whenever that is. But don't just tune in, and we'll be there. It won't be too much longer. I doubt this is going to go 20 innings. Hopefully the Rangers win, Monday or Tuesday, Wednesday, and we don't even have it on Thursday. We'll get ready and have a big show Friday. Until tomorrow, though, be kind, be safe, keep your underwear clean, and we'll see you right back here tomorrow on the Sports Complex on the Horn.